Hello, for this module, we're going to be working with tables in Google Docs. So I have one that I set up previously. It's a presentation sign-up sheet, place for people to put down who's on their team, the project title, the presentation types. And then I've used some of the table properties to spruce it up and make it look nice. I've added some directions and I've added a link to the rubric so they can review what the grading rubric is going to be like. So let's get started. So I'm simply going to go to version history. Oops. First of all, I'm going to go to my assignments, make sure I'm in my class folder, and create a new document. All right, the first thing I'm going to do is name it appropriately. This is module 4.1. Sign-up sheet could be for just about anything. So I want to make sure I don't forget to include directions here. So I'm just going to type that in and I'm going to come back and fill it in later once I've got my table completed. So the first thing I want to do is get started with my table. So I'm going to go to the Insert menu, select Table, and then I'm going to use my mouse and just drag across to the number, pick the number of rows I want and the number of columns. So I said anywhere 2 or 3 rows, 8 to 10, 2 or 3 columns, 8 to 10 rows. So I'm going to start that. It's easy to build and more rows. If I click down here at the last row, I just tab and it adds another row for me easily. And in a minute, I'll be showing you how to add columns. So the first thing is, what kind of information am I going to collect? Well, they're going to pick a date for their presentation. So I want them to have a date, place to either select a date or type in a date, whichever I decide to do. Then I want to know who's on the team. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and type in the dates for the presentations. This will make it easier for me to see who's doing what on what day. And I only want 3 presentations in a day. So I'm just going to go ahead and number these rows here so that somebody doesn't sneak another presentation in there. And then I'm just going to copy this information because I just want to repeat it down the page. Okay, so that's pretty good. This column here doesn't need to be near that big, so I'm just going to click and drag and adjust the column width so I have more room for them to type team members. Now, obviously, when they type, it will just grow as they type. Each cell will grow as it types. So I don't have to worry about them running out of room for adding their team in there. Now, I'd really like to have a little bit more information here. So I'm going to insert another column. So I can either right-click or I can go to the Format menu and go down to Table. And I can do some inserting and deleting here. So I'm going to insert a column to the right. I would like to know the project title. Okay. Now it did mess up my first column here, so I'm just simply going to drag it back, give it a little bit more room. Okay. All right, so I'm doing pretty well. I would have liked to have had what this table is used for above here. So I'm going to go ahead and insert a row above it. This time I'm going to right click so that you can see that you have options just by right clicking. So insert row above. Now these will not show up if you're not in a table, so that's kind of nice. So this is a sign-up sheet or presentation. All right, but I'd like it to go across all 3 columns. So I'm going to do what's called a merge. I'm going to select all 3 columns. Again, I'm going to right click, and if I scroll down, I can see merge cells. So that's nice. I'd like this to be centered, so I'm going to use my alignment options here. And I'm just going to give some space there so it looks nice. Okay, so let's start by doing some formatting on this because I have my basic information in there. Now I want to make it look nicer. Before I do that though, I don't actually need these two lines here, so I might merge these together. So I'm going to select those, again right click and merge. So that's kind of a nice feature too. You can merge both columns and you can merge rows. Now if I changed my mind, I just right click and unmerge them and they're back to the way they were. So again, I'm selecting, right click, oops, I didn't get it selected, and merge. One more time. I just like the way that looks. Now I would like this to be, add some pizzazz to it. So I'm going to right click and go to table properties and use this cell background color. So blue is one of my colors. So I'm going to select blue. And at the same time, I can look at some of the other options here and say, okay. Now what I notice is because I chose a dark color, the black text on that dark background doesn't really show up that well. So I'm going to select that text and I'm going to change it to white. So now that pops a little better and it's much easier to read. So always be aware of readability for your students. I'd like to do something similar to this row here because these are the headings for my column. So I want them to stand out also. So I'm going to I selected all three columns there. I'm going to go to table properties. Sometimes you have to scroll down. And I'm going to stay with the blue. I'm going to choose a lighter color blue. Okay, that's looking nice. I like how that's looking. Now I'm just going to do some font stuff. This is totally up to you. I'm going to change it to a fun font. I'm going to make it larger so it's easier to read. For these headings, I will bold and maybe I will change the size. Okay, so this is looking good. There is another property that I would like you to explore. If I go to table property, the table border, by default, it's this dark gray black. If you don't like it that way, you can choose like a grade color and it softens that those lines. But I don't want to go too light because I do want people to be able to see where they're supposed to type. So if I turn it, you can play with the white feature too. I do that when I'm using a table in a footer for page numbers and things. I'll change the border to white so it doesn't look like there's a table down there. Now I realize I really want one more piece of information from them. So I'm going to go ahead and right click again and insert a column to the right. I would like to know what type of presentation they're giving. So but that messed up my top row here. So I'm just going to select these two and I'm going to right click and merge. Okay, nice. Now it keeps messing with this date column. So that's fine. I can just simply move it. But what if I want a little bit more room? I can. Don't forget you have in that page setup. It's hard to see because of my tools there. I could change this landscape. I can change the margins. If I have a lot of students, I might want to do this. I have a lot of information I'm collecting. So just know that that's available. And then you simply just drag and resize these columns. However you think you'll need, how much room you'll need. Okay, so we created the table by using the insert menu, table, and then just selecting how many rows and columns we wanted. We've been adjusting the widths to fit the information that we want. We merge cells here and we merge cells here. And then if I wanted to, I could move this down a little bit if I wanted just to play with that. We did cell background shading. So I did tables properties to get to that information. I changed the border, and again, that was in table properties. I was going to insert a link to the rubric for this lesson. So I have, I'm going to move my window here just a little bit because I have a rubric on my other window here. So what I did is I had that share on. I turned on the shareable link. They only need to view it. I don't want them writing in the rubric right now. But if I did want them to self-evaluate, I might change this to edit. Okay. So anyway, I'm going to select done. I'm going to go back to my other document here. Forgive me for moving. And then I'm going to create this as a hyperlink. We did this in the previous module, but it's a good reminder and a good use of information we've been working with. And then I'm just going to center it, use my alignment tools. Okay, so the only thing left here is just to type in directions. So even if you've given directions verbally, it's nice to have them on the actual document that they're going to be entering information in, because like all of us, we sometimes forget. So you might want to say, only 3 presentations a day, type all team members on the same line. They may think they're typing, a team member on separate lines, etc. So whatever information you can get to make sure that it's clear what you want them to do when you're not physically there to help them out. So go ahead and pick. I've given you several examples in the lesson. Please pick a project that will be helpful to you in your classroom or with your staff members, and have a lot of fun experimenting with using tables in Google Docs.